standing as we recite the national pledge. I pledge myself to honor always the flag of Guyana and to be loyal to my country, to be obedient to the laws of Guyana, to love my fellow citizens, and to dedicate my energies towards the happiness and prosperity of Guyana. Thank you. Please be seated. His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Honorable Minister Susan Rodriguez, Honorable Ministers of Government, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chief Executive Officer of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, Chairman and members of the Board of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, Chairman and members of the Private Sector Commission, heads of partner agencies, mayors, chairmen, and councillors of the municipalities, towns and NDCs, management and staff of the National Data Management Agency, Consultant Mr. Farid Amin, heads of departments and staff of the Central Housing and Planning Authority and the Ministry, esteemed invitees all, good morning and welcome to this momentous occasion where we will inaugurate a pivotal advancement and groundbreaking initiative in our nation's governance and development strategy. That is the launch today of the single window platform for planning and development applications. Allow me at this time to apologize on behalf of Honorable Minister Colin Crowell, who could not be here today due to some important government duties. At this time, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker, who will deliver the opening remarks. He is the chairman of the board of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, and he's also the deputy vice chancellor of the University of Guyana. Please join me in welcoming the chairman, Dr. Emmanuel Cummings, to deliver opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Permanent Secretary. Our distinguished President, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, our Attorney General and other senior ministers of government, Minister of Housing, Mrs. Susan Rodriguez, other staff from the Ministry of Housing, the Planning Department, CEO of the Central Housing and Planning, all our partners who work with us to bring us this far, with respect from the relevant government agencies, our consultants, and also Mr. Amin. A pleasant good morning. It gives me great pleasure in delivering the opening remarks of this significant and historic activity. It is indeed yet another of activities or programs that emphasizes the vision of our distinguished President, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, who, as we can all see, whose intention clearly is seen to transform our beloved country in the shortest possible time to a state that can be compared to the developed world in all aspects of its development. The single window initiative is seen as one of those initiatives that can act as a catalyst for the development of our country. I must say that the current board of directors, on behalf of which I speak, of the directive CHA, are indeed honored to be part of this initiative that will no doubt enhance and facilitate not just the work of the planning department, but that of the board. This single window initiative is both historic and transformational, led by our esteemed president in collaboration with the two ministers, the Honorable Connie Crowell, who's not here, and Minister Susan Rodriguez, our CEO, our permanent secretary, and the director and members of the planning department in collaboration with NDMA and our consultant, Mr. Amin. This initiative will forever transform the development landscape of our beloved country. I must posit to you that the board of directors meet once per month, and between January and May of this year, we will have seen 375 applications, which represents 75% of processing of 25 applications, represents 75% of all applications. Our indicators that it takes about 3 months to process an application through the system. The single window initiative, which represents a virtual enterprise that is predicated on the exchange of documents in an online business environment through collaboration of multiple government agencies sharing one common interface, will significantly reduce that process to a maximum of 35 days. It do provide an online environment which applicants can initiate application from the comfort of their home. It represents a single point of entry and replace the system which I spoke about that took a maximum of 3 months, bringing together in one platform, one online platform, the online interaction of the different government agencies. During this process, applicants will be able to receive updates about their applications from the comfort of their home, the status by email. It will also ensure efficiency and transparency in decision-making on all applications that are processed through the planning department. This initiative, as I will say earlier, will provide greater satisfaction among consumers. It will enhance the delivery to consumers that access the services at the planning department. It will also provide an opportunity for standardization of documents and a single decision making, and at the same time reducing the processing time. There is no doubt that this historic launching of the single window initiative, which, as I said, is a brainchild of His Excellency, and indeed, by extension, part of the program of government, will significantly transform our beloved country in a more business-friendly environment that certainly this initiative is seen as very much compatible with that of the government. I wish to indicate to you that the board of directors that usually would meet once per month will be called upon to meet more than one. We'll be able to certainly increase the number of processing, the percentage of processing of these applications, and also to reduce the time that I would have mentioned earlier, with respect to the processing of these applications. Your Excellency, I want to indicate to you, Ministers of Government, that the Board of Directors is happy to be part of this initiative. I want to give you the commitment, the full commitment of the Board of Directors in our trust to facilitate and to work with this initiative to make our beloved country a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cummings. The private sector is a key partner in a wide spectrum of activities and plays a very important role in national development. The Private Sector Commission was established in 1992 with the aim of bringing together private sector organizations and business entities for the purposes of joint advocacy and representation of its members. Please join with me in welcoming Chairman of the Private Sector Commission, Mr. Komal Singh, to deliver remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair. I stand in all protocol observed. A very good morning to everyone here this morning. It's a distinct privilege to be given this opportunity here this morning to represent the private sector today on this momentous occasion to participate in the launching of the single window system. Today marks a significant milestone for our country, since this single window system will further improve the approval process and, most importantly, allow the applicant to now be able to track the progress online. This will also enable applicants to plan in a more organized manner for their respective development. Mr. Chairman, if you permit me to just go back a little bit into our history, you will recall in 2020, we had over $1 billion worth of investment, private sector investment, being stymied for over a year simply because of non-approval through the various agencies. That has significantly affected the private sector development in meeting some of the demand that was so badly needed in the private sector because of the advent of oil and gas then. The single window system today is a significant milestone for our private sector and our country. The government's strategic development plan is one that is done in a very organized manner. Those plans are not done in isolation. It caters for the environment, it caters for sustainability, it also caters for private sector development, and also in keeping with the sustainable development goals that are set by the UN Charter. CHMP has been in the forefront on a few of these target objectives set by the SDG goals and objectives, such as sustainable cities and communities, clean water sanitation, and by extension, the government is also making an effort in a very significant way to make sure that all the other ministries and government agencies work towards achieving these SDGs objectives. The private sector commend the government for their continuous commitment and effort to remove barriers to development in our country. We have an excellent investment climate with high investor confidence, and most importantly, we have a visionary government that supports the private sector. I thank you very, very much once again.
Thank you, Mr. Komal Singh. The development of a complex software solution which incorporates different manual processes into a centralized digitized system is indeed a challenging task. It requires substantial technical and non-technical inputs from different agencies and stakeholders. Overseeing this entire process were two key persons who will give the project summation in a moment. Let me introduce consultant Mr. Farid Ahmed, who worked with the talented software developers of the National Data Management Agency and staff of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, headed by Ms. Jermaine Cho, our Chief Development Planner on this project. Mr. Farid Ahmed brought a wealth of experience to this project. He has more than 27 years of distinguished service in the public sector in Canada and held important positions in the government of Ontario, including Deputy Minister, Assistant Deputy Minister, and he also served as a Deputy City Manager of the City of Toronto. Ms. Germaine Stewart is the Chief Development Officer of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, and she has been with the agency for over 20 years in various positions. Ms. Stewart is the lead manager of the Central Housing and Planning Authority for this initiative. I would now like to invite Mr. Fareed Ahmed, who will give a holistic overview of the system. Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. PS. His Excellency, President Mohamed Irfan Ali, Honorable Ministers, members of the diplomatic community, my esteemed colleagues, good morning. Personally, I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time, and I believe, Mr. President, you've been waiting longer. Having said that, I'm extremely pleased to join with my colleagues this morning to announce that we have completed the technology solution to implement a single window planning and development approval system. We've also put in place, through the auspices of the National Assembly, the requisite legislative framework to facilitate the implementation of this system. Let me preface my brief remarks by saying a couple of things. The first one is, and I think this acknowledgement has been done before, is to thank the President for his leadership on this and other transformative initiatives to create a modern, 21st century, high-performing public service. I believe that His Excellency acknowledged and recognized that a growth trajectory, which is fueled by an economy firing on all cylinders, cannot be sustainable without the commensurate changes within the organization that provide these transactional and direct customer service. I've always said that those of us who work in government are pretty good at organizing government that work for us, not for the people who are trying to access government services. This initiative, I believe, is a step in that direction. It is to transform government services so that you don't need to understand the complexities of government to access government services. This single window portal, as the President has continuously reminded me and others, needs to be such that individuals can access government through a single portal. I also want to thank the leadership at the CHNPA, including Ministers Kroll and Minister Rodriguez, who have been relentless in their support of this initiative, as was the CEO. I would also like to acknowledge the work of Ms. Stewart and her team, and especially the small team that traveled with me across this country as we did consultation with all levels of government, with the private sector, and also with the civic society. This initiative, I believe, led by the President, clearly demonstrates his strategic vision that looks beyond the here and the now. It reminds me, and if you can forgive the analogy, of a statement made by Wayne Gretzky, who is a famous hockey player. He said, "I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where the puck is." And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. This, I think, Mr. President, is a step in the right direction. It is a step to transform government beyond the here and the now, to look the next 15, 20 years at the kind of urban fabric we're trying to inculcate in Guyana. The project team recognized very early in the process that for this initiative to be successful, we need what I would describe as a whole-of-government approach. We need everyone in government, every agency, every NDC, every regional government who touches the planning and development process to be involved. So we embarked on a very extensive consultation across this country. And I personally, with a number of CHNPA staff, traveled 3 or 4 times across the country to meet with the private sector, to meet with chambers of commerce, to meet with NDC, to meet with our partner agency, to conduct consultation, because we wanted to understand what's happening on the ground, so we're building a system that is implementable by folks who will be in charge of providing input into the system. We conducted over 100 consultation meetings across this country. And my only regret is that those who traveled with me had to hear my jokes 100 times. It reminds me of the speech by Albert Einstein. In those days when he was traveling across the country, delivering his speech on the theory of relativity. In those days he didn't have the ubiquitous World Wide Web, so he had to travel from city to city delivering his speech. And one day his driver looked at him and says, "You know, Mr. Einstein, I've listened to this so many times, I can deliver this speech." So the next time they arrived at the city, Einstein said, "Okay, Mr. Driver, you can go and deliver the speech," and the driver did deliver a flawless speech. Now for Q&A, there was a question from the audience, a very tough question, and the driver, who was pretending to be Einstein, said, "That question is so simple, I'm going to ask my driver to provide the response." So I think I've delivered that speech so many times that many of the staff from CH&P could have delivered it flawlessly as well. But I think, all kidding aside, it was important for us to understand what's happening on the ground, and it was important for us to take comments and input from our colleagues across this country. And as a result of that input, I think the system we are presenting to you today is better. In fact, the intention was not necessarily to completely reinvent the wheel. In fact, in the new system, we've adopted some of the practices, some of the best practices at the NDC level. Some of the application forms that you will see in the single window system were derived from forms that existed within the NDCs. Today, I am very pleased to announce that if you're applying for a development permit anywhere in the country, regardless of you're sitting in Region 1 or Region 10, you use a single application form. There's a uniformity across the system that I think we garnered that was important to be part of the consultation process. The fee structure that we end up with was as a result of the discussion and consultation we had with the ministry. And in this regard, I also want to acknowledge the support we received from the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, because in many respects, many of their staff will also be involved in the implementation of the system. So the system that you see here today was a result and a culmination of the work of a number of agencies across this great country, the private sector, and the system we're presenting to you, hopefully, is a representation of some of the comments we heard when we did those consultations. Dr. Cummings spoke about the engagement of the board, and I want to also acknowledge and thank them for the work that they did and their advice that they provided to us from time to time that helped us to deliver a better product today. But as all of us know in this room, technology is a means to an end and not the end unto itself. So the difficult work comes now, the implementation of this work comes now. And let me, before I ask Ms. Stewart to go through the process, let me speak briefly about some of the new provisions in the legislation that I think one has to be cognizant of. And the thinking that we had here and the direction we received from the President was to think beyond the here and the now. So the system that we are building should be scalable because Guyana is growing, the kind of development permits that we're seeing, the complexity of those permits are increasing, so the system that we build has to have the ability to cope and adapt to future complexities that might arise through the planning and development system. The foundation of this system, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a complete application. So the system will not allow or accept your application unless it is complete. It's not dissimilar to applying for a passport. If you don't have the requisite information, that application will not be permitted. This system we've built is what I would describe as policy-led. Of course, we're not there yet. There are certain cornerstones that need to be in place to have a truly policy-led system, but we've laid the foundation to have a policy-led system. What we've done here is taken the discretion out of the system to provide that certainty and predictability that I think citizens deserve and the government is prepared to put in place. The second important aspect of the system is what is called the administrative system. And this is actually if I can describe it, the CPU of the system. This is where the timelines will be established, and these timelines will be required by agencies to provide comments, and Ms. Stewart will speak to this in a more fulsome way. But the administrative scheme that is now in regulation puts in place the different timelines and the roles and responsibilities of the different agency. We did not want to leave this open-ended. We want to make sure that every player in the system understand what their roles are and their responsibilities are. And this is codified in the administrative scheme that is now being gazetted as part of the regulatory regime to implement the new planning system. There is a single window unit being established, and the single window unit is going to manage the day-to-day functioning of the system. It will ensure and facilitate transactions through the system by ensuring reliable records. Again, the system is electronic, but doesn't take the discretion out of the system in terms of the documentation that needs to be in place. The single window planning unit will also maintain an electronic database and all the documents in the system. It will ensure the privacy and confidentiality of the information in the system. A lot of the information that will find its way in the single window system will be commercially sensitive. We need to ensure that information is protected, and the single window unit will have an important role to play in that regard. The single window unit will also collect statistics to look at trends. One of the things that I've talked about extensively as we did the consultation, it would help in infrastructure planning, for example. So the system would allow you to pull up on a dashboard. You can see where the development efforts and development concentration are, and on that basis you can plan for roads, for schools, for hospitals, and the infrastructure to support those clusters of development. So the system will have a spatial capacity to enable decision makers to put policies in place to support those development. An important component also will be the Planning Oversight Committee. So one of the things that we put in place is a check and balance. And the Planning Oversight Committee will consist of members of the private sector, the public sector, and some of the key associations like the Engineering Association, the Architects, and the Planning Association. And this committee, as it were, will sit on top of the system to monitor, to make sure that the system is working the way it was designed to work. The efficacy of the system will be monitored by the Planning Oversight Committee. This committee will also be responsible for tabling an annual report in Parliament to comment on the system and how effective it is work, and to make recommendations to the Minister from time to time on improvements that can be made to the system. It would also be tasked with the responsibility to identify any bottlenecks in the system. If, for example, an agency is not complying with those timelines for whatever reason, it might be staff, it might be technology, this committee can bring some of those recommendations forward to the Minister to support those agencies in their quest to be effective in their response. And the final important component that's new to the system is an appeal mechanism. So what we've put in there is to allow individuals who are aggrieved by a decision of the board to appeal that decision. And again, even the timelines associated with appeals are defined, so that we're not having an open-ended system, and we're trying as best as we can to eliminate any frivolous or vexatious or appeal made for the purposes of delay. So what we've tried to do here is to build a complete system, is to think about the system from end to end, attach some very rigorous timelines to it, to make sure there's accountability along the way, because as you know, if everyone is accountable, no one is accountable. So what we try to do here is to pinpoint exactly who is accountable for what, so that adjustments can be made if necessary. Let me just conclude my brief comments by saying that the important component now is for us to implement this system. And this implementation, again, I come back to what I said earlier, would require a whole of government approach. Every individual, every organization in the system will have to be able to do what's required of them to make the system function as a whole. The system will not function unless all of us make a commitment and facilitate and forge that collaboration to ensure that the system is effective. We need to create what I would describe as a horizontally based, very collaborative, enterprise-wide public sector organization to implement this initiative. And finally, I want to thank all of those who supported the CHNPA in this journey, It was a privilege for me to work on this project, and I want to thank the President again for his vision and this initiative, and I hope that this will transform the planning and development process in Guyana and make it another notch in that quest to make it easier for people to do business, work, and play in this great country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Amin. Thank you very much. I'll now invite Ms. Jermaine Stewart, who will give us a walkthrough of the system.
With all protocol observed, good morning to everyone. As the project coordinator for the implementation of this single window project, I am privileged to stand before you today to mark this significant milestone in the evolution of planning and development processes in Guyana. I am thrilled to walk you through this transformative initiative that promises to revolutionize how we handle planning permissions across the country. This portal represents a monumental shift from our current paper-based system, where applications are submitted to local authorities for review before forwarded to Central Housing and Planning Authority for processing. With a single window system, all applications will now be submitted to the Central Housing and Planning Authority through the portal. The single window portal integrates multiple government agencies and the local authorities into a cohesive platform, enabling a more efficient and coordinated approach to handling planning and development projects. By accelerating the approval process through concurrent review rather than sequential processing, we are saving valuable time. Applicants can now expect decisions on their applications within 30 to 45 days. Previously, it was 3 months or sometimes longer. So for applicants, the portal provides unparalleled convenience, eliminating the need for multiple visits to different offices. So the first thing an applicant must do is register as a user on the single window portal through the CHNPA's website. The portal, it includes resources such as the various agencies' requirements, how-to videos, required fees to be paid, and frequently asked questions to assist potential applicants. A key feature of the portal is the option for a pre-application consultation before submitting a full application. It is strongly recommended that investors have a pre-application meeting if applying for a planning permit. This pre-consultation assists the applicant in preparing a complete application, minimizing any delays in processing of the full applications. This process is particularly beneficial for major developments and applicants unfamiliar with the local planning and development process. Applicants can pre-select the meeting dates and times from the prescribed option available through the portal. So it is the customer driven. It's not the CHNPA will be setting the meeting. They can determine the date of the meeting and we will make ourselves available for that date. The CHNPA will coordinate and chair all the meetings, inviting the partner agencies as needed, depending on the nature of the proposal. During the pre-application meeting, the planning process will be explained, information requirements will be advised, and key issues of the proposal will be discussed. This helps clarify requirements, address initial queries, and identify potential issues early in the process. For the full planning permission, all applications, again, must be submitted through the portal with all the plans reports that form part of that application. The system ensures that all necessary documents can be uploaded, securely stored, and easily retrieved by both applicants and agencies. This reduces the risk of loss or misplaced paperwork and ensures that all required documentation is readily available for review. Upon submission, applicants receive instant email note confirmation, and at the same time, the relevant CHMPA staff involved in the processing are notified of the new application in the system. Then a technical review of the application and the uploaded documents is then conducted to verify completeness and compliance. If any documents are missing or if there are any compliance issues, the CHMPA will request additional information or corrections through the portal, and the applicant will be notified accordingly. Once the application is deemed complete and compliant, the applicant will receive an email regarding the collective amount to be paid for all partner agencies. The applicable fees can be paid via bank transfer or online through the GTT MMG system, or in person if they choose to at any CHMPA office or a designated agency by CHMPA. Upon payment verification, the review process begins. The clock starts ticking then. The portal allows CHMPA to invite all the partner agencies for simultaneous review and to request joint site visits if necessary. This coordinated approach speeds up the overall review process, ensuring timely approvals. All comments, recommendations, and approvals from partner agencies are uploaded to the portal. If any agency needs additional information, they can request it through the portal, with the CHMPA single window unit facilitating the submission of such information from the applicant. So during the review process, notification will be sent to reminded agencies of the number of days remaining for decisions on the application. Decisions on applications, whether approval, conditional approval, or rejection, will be communicated to the applicant through the portal. For conditional approvals, the planning permit uploaded to the portal provides detailed guidance on the conditions that must be fulfilled. In case of rejection, the notice received through the portal outlines specific reasons, helping applicants address the deficiencies or issues in future submissions. So for the implementation and support that must be provided, once a planning application is approved, applicants can proceed with implementing their proposed plans or projects as outlined in the approval decision. This may involve obtaining further permits, such as environmental permits and the building permits from the local authorities, which will be uploaded to the portal also. For conditional approvals, applicants must ensure compliance with the specified conditions, include meeting regulatory requirements and addressing environmental concerns, if there are any. The CHMPA single window unit will provide continuous support to all system users. With ongoing stakeholder feedback, we will continuously coordinate with the National Data Management Authority to provide iterative improvements and enhancements, ensuring the system evolves to meet the changing needs of both applicants and agencies. So the launch of this single window portal marks a transformative step forward in how we manage planning applications in Guyana. I urge all stakeholders, government agencies, developers, consultants, and citizens alike to embrace this transformational change. Let us all work together to make the single window portal a cornerstone of efficiency, transparency in our planning and development processes. Thank you, and I look forward to the positive impact this portal will have on our country's growth.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Thank you for explaining the process and how it works, and also to Mr. Amin for his explanation also on the summation of the system. The Ministry of Housing and Water has two very active and dedicated ministers who are working very hard to ensure that the mandates of the ministry and its agencies are fulfilled. Honorable Minister Susan Rodriguez needs no introduction, but I'd like to encourage you, or let's invite her to present her remarks at this point in time. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, members of Cabinet, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Permanent Secretary Kupin, and our host for this morning, CEO of Central Housing and Planning Authority, Mr. Greaves, heads of departments of CHPA, Ms. Jeremy Stewart, our Chief Development Planner, Mr. Farid Amin, our project consultant, Dr. Emmanuel Cummings, and Mr. Rajesh Ramgalam, Chairperson and Secretary of the CHPA Board, respectively, and other board members, Mr. Komal Singh, Chairman of the Private Sector Commission, and other members of the private sector represented here today, mayors, regional chairpersons, NDC chairpersons, councillors, the Guyana Fire Service, heads of agencies, stakeholders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people here today, welcome. Today marks a significant milestone for the Ministry of Housing and Water, the Central Housing and Planning Authority, the Government of Guyana, and indeed for the entire country, as we officially launch the Planning and Development Single Window System. The electronic single window system stands as a testament to our government's unwavering commitment to modernization, transparency, and efficiency in delivering government services. For many years, we have heard the clarion call to reduce bureaucracy, cut through the infamous red tape, and create a business-friendly environment in Guyana. Today, we have taken a giant leap forward in fulfilling that promise. Historically, Guyana has had a modest level of investment to manage, and even this sometimes took years. When we came into government in 2020, as you heard from the chairman of the Private Sector Commission, we had billions of dollars stymied in development that was waiting for approval at the Central Housing and Planning Authority Board. The reference that you heard earlier about 3 months or so persons waiting for a planning approval was due to a direct intervention of our government when we took office in 2020, asking the board to meet regularly, conducting round robins in some cases where the development was urgent and where an investor was waiting to invest his resources and create employment for our people to stimulate our economy. We ensured that we gave the attention to those permits so that the development can move forward. And today, with the launch of this electronic single window system, we have even halved that time. The national and local government bodies have managed the volume of development applications using simple paper-based workflows with limited use of technology to record applications in a database. The discovery and subsequent production of oil has dramatically altered Guyana's reality and has generated significant interest in new development from local and overseas investors. Interest in Guyana's economy has included investment at all levels, from industrial to residential development, petroleum, hospitality, and service industries. Increase in public spending, introduction of government programs which has stimulated the economy, and growth in private investments have all prompted the need to revolutionize the planning permitting system. With the increase in development application volume, the move to introduce a more automated process that streamlines workflows both within the CHPA and with stakeholder agencies that are part of the overall approval process became a necessity. Dealing with construction permits for the most part involves the planning permission system, where the CHPA is the central agency with direct functional linkages with the local authorities and with the other regulatory and statutory bodies. Therefore, the CHPA was given the mandate to play the lead role in establishing a single window system in dealing with planning and building permits. More notably, this electronic application and approval system is part of a bigger commitment our government has made to the people of Guyana and those who are desirous of investing here. We are committed to ensuring we introduce e-governance platforms to promote transparency and accountability, to employ the use of technology and innovation in delivering goods and services, and modernizing our legal and legislative framework. At this point where Guyana has economically taken off, the reform is necessary in respect to legislative amendments and streamlining procedures so that processing time for planning and building permits can be reduced and customer service improved. For the period October 2020 to May 2024, the CHPA considered 3,611 planning permission applications, with a total of 136 applications directly related to the oil and gas sector. Having been tasked with the responsibility of introducing this system, we hired consultants with the requisite expertise and experience in implementing similar electronic approval systems in other jurisdictions. We deployed the expertise to map and re-engineer the current process. We consulted widely with a number of ministries and agencies, including all of the 70 NDCs and 10 towns. The bill to establish the single window system was sent to a select parliamentary committee where it was scrutinized and benefited from recommendations from members of both sides of the House. And eventually on July 20th, 2023, the Planning and Development Single Window Act was passed in the National Assembly to govern the implementation and management of the system, along with setting clear timelines for decisions which enhances accountability, transparency, and predictability. The electronic portal can be accessed from anywhere in the world. This would not only allow investors to submit applications and supporting documentations electronically, but would allow individuals to check the status of their applications and allow decision makers to monitor the performance of the various ministries and agencies. Further, this system has been re-engineered to clearly identify the requirements for various types of development upfront and reduces unnecessary steps in the process. The single window planning and development approval system is another initiative by President Ali to reduce bureaucracy, eliminate barriers to doing business, and contribute to an enhanced business climate. The system will allow developers and builders to know exactly how long they would have to wait for a decision and can factor these considerations as they make plans to finance and execute projects. I must emphasize, and Dr. Amin did as well, that the success and efficacy of this system is dependent on a whole of government approach. All the ministries and agencies involved in the planning, development, and construction process need to be fully engaged and working collaboratively. Further, while this is about shortening the decision timelines by reducing the steps, we will continue to ensure sound planning principles are respected. Our President is an urban planner, of course. All health and safety protocols are complied with. Development is consistent with key national and regional objectives, that we protect our natural resources and meet our environmentally sustainable goals, and that monitoring and enforcement are strengthened. In practical terms, the Planning and Development Single Window System Act centralizes functions pertaining to land use planning and development by conferring the responsibility on the central authority, which is CHPA, to be the single point of submission and receipt, to effectively manage and implement the system, and to facilitate the onward transmission of planning and development applications to any other person or agency for processing or review where applicable. A unit will be housed within the CHPA to manage the day-to-day functioning of the system, maintain an electronic database, and assist users, among other duties. Additionally, the Act establishes the Planning Oversight Committee, which shall be responsible for overseeing and monitoring the CHPA's progress in implementing the system and to ensure policy adherence. Moreover, the Act establishes a planning appeals tribunal for the purpose of hearing appeals against decisions of the CHPA in respect of planning and development applications. The applicant who is aggrieved by a decision may, within 28 days of receipt of the decision, appeal against that decision by notice in writing. The appellant is afforded the opportunity to present his or her case, and the decision of the Planning Appeals Tribunal to dismiss, uphold, or vary the decision of the central authority is final, unless the minister declares the matter to be one of national interest. And even this is not arbitrary, since the Act provides for the Cabinet to ultimately review and decide on a particular application that is declared a matter of national interest. It must be highlighted that the Planning and Development Single Window System Act ensures strict adherence to the principles of transparency, accountability, certainty, and predictability to the approval process. Notably, it reduces the powers and influence of political figures in the approval process and has signaled our intention and willingness to let the system work. This system removes any and all forms of bias and demonstrates commitment to fairness. The use of technology and timeframes prescribed by law completely removes any form of subjectivity and even reduces opportunity for corruption. These are characteristics associated with a modern, transparent economy, and we are facilitating the transformation of our economy by updating and enacting legislation to govern a country in transition. We welcome changes which make our work easier and give greater convenience to our citizens. We must adopt new innovative ways of doing things. We embrace innovation and technology and the legislative changes that those technologies need to work. In closing, on behalf of myself and my colleague, Minister Kroll, who unfortunately could not be here today, we would like to acknowledge and thank those who played a critical role in getting us to this point. You're going to hear a lot of acknowledgements today, but that's only because almost every single person who is in this room had a part to play in ensuring that we got to where we are today. So it's a lot of people to thank and a lot of people who have played a very significant role. First of all, I'd like to thank President Ali. Thank you, sir, for your visionary leadership in recognizing the need for this technology, for your commitment to fairness and transparency, and your support in seeing this through. Special thanks to the consultant, Mr. Farid Amin, who has been at this for several years now. We greatly value your professionalism, expertise, and patience demonstrated throughout this process. Our Chief Planning and Development Officer of CHPA, Ms. Jeremy Stewart, we are grateful for your commitment to this process and for taking on the demanding workload required for the end product. Special thanks also to the National Data Management Authority for their software engineering in creating the electronic portal, the Attorney General, Mr. Anil Nandalal and his chambers, our legal drafter, Mr. Ramdani and his team, CEO of CHPA, Mr. Sherwin Greaves, Secretary to the Board, Mr. Rajesh Ramgalam, and indeed the entire board of CHPA, our Corporate Legal Secretary of CHPA, Ms. Hannah Jordan, the Planning Department of CHPA, the Public Relations Department, the Research Assistants, all of the stakeholders in other agencies, NDCs, local government, RDCs, for your dedicated work, your cooperation and support, and all of the other groups and individuals involved in making this vision a reality. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Susan Rodriguez. At this point in time, we'll have a cultural presentation in the form of a song to be performed by Ms. Nikita. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Nikita to perform the song.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. All protocols are being observed this morning. Now, I grew up with the saying, all work and no play makes Jack a very, very dull boy. So, for the next 2 minutes or so, we are going to really celebrate this amazing achievement and everything that we're about to witness here today. So, DJ, can you play some soca music for me, please?
Thank you, Ms. Nikita. Thank you. I'd like to invite you all to turn your attention to the screens. The audiovisual team will now present the premiere of the single window video.
Welcome to Guyana. Welcome to Guyana, a country on the cusp of transformation.
For other online services. So stay tuned.
As Guyana continues to prosper, the single window application system is an essential tool for sustainable growth in the areas of land use and property development. By embracing this digital innovation, Guyana is paving the way for a brighter and more modern future, especially as similar technological advances are adopted in other government agencies.
Ladies and gentlemen, this transformational project, the single window platform for planning and development applications, is of course the brainchild of His Excellency, as was previously mentioned. The President is a strong advocate for modernization and efficiency in governance, and his leadership has been crucial in driving initiatives that will propel our nation towards prosperity, efficiency, and sustainability. It is my great pleasure and distinct honor to welcome His Excellency, Dr. Mohamed El Fanali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, to deliver the keynote address and to officially launch the single window platform for planning and development applications. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Please have your seats. I hope that the approval system does not take as long as this program. But let me first of all acknowledge some very important actors in this process. Now, maybe just to give a historical perspective on what is happening, I may need to go back in time a bit. During the period, and I can account for a particular period, 2009 to 2015, during that period, we had many revolutionary initiatives in the housing sector. For a matter of fact, many of you may not know, but during the period just after 2009, 2011, and 2014, many international agencies refer to our housing model and housing program as a model program for developing countries. For a matter of fact, the leadership of the Central Housing and Planning Authority was then invited to go to a number of countries, including Suriname, to make a presentation on Guyana's housing model and the successes of that model. I had the greatest honor to be part of what I still believe to be one of the finest team, the A team in housing, led by some very capable people. Today, that tradition continues. But I want to recognize Morna, who is here, who was the then CEO. Edinburgh, who was the then Chief Development Planner. Charmin is still here. Denise is still here. Cummings, Dr. Cummings was still on the board. Taslin Bach, who was the finance controller. And it was in 20, and I'm going to tell you a bit about Anna's role too. It was in 2013 that we started to discuss how we could have improved the entire system. Just before that, we had transitioned the application process to an online application system. And we had started the Remigrant Housing Scheme program. So it is part of the phased approach. We were then very happy to welcome Mr. Farid Amin. So this is how far back that went, who had a session with us. And we started some engagement. At that time, he was occupied in Spose in Canada. And he promised that he would come back to work with us on this. Now, I can't account for the period 2015 to 2020. Neither Morna, you can't account because you were there soon after. But what I can say is that in 2030, I engaged then Attorney General annually. And because it was a minority government at that time, we had started three things. The hire purchase legislation, the improvement in our competitiveness, the Competitiveness Act, and we have started work on how we can build this. But we did not have the parliamentary support at that time, and a lot of this work was left hanging. When we returned to office in 2020, and then we recognized to Denise, John and Charmin and all the stakeholders then, because at that time we had started the implementation of GIS, and we were training our staff in GIS. We moved away, and this is something we don't speak about. It is during that period too we moved away because we trained our staff from consultants designing and supervising our project, which saved us billions of dollars. Rajesh also was there. Billions of dollars we saved. because we built up through the IDB the internal capacity and capability of doing all our designs, all our planning, and all our supervision in-house. And that is why we're able to have such an accelerated program, to the extent that the international agency trusted our designs, our planning, and our supervision. Today that continues, and we save billions of dollars every year because of that internal mechanism that we were able to build. Now, when in 2020, one of the first things we did was we had a consultation with the private sector and the banking sector. The AG, indirectly, most of the cabinet was there. And it was striking because we were told by the private sector that they had more than $50 million of projects held up for more than 3 years because they didn't have planning permit. In 1 month, we unlocked all of those, and all those projects are completed today, more than $100 million of investment and thousands of jobs. So not only were these approvals held up, but thousands of high-paying jobs were held up. Investors were held up, investments were held up. And we did a traceability analysis, the AC would tell you. And we found that shocking permits, especially in the city, were held up at the city council sometimes for 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 1.5 years. The average time in a study was 9.5 months. And that could not be acceptable. So we brought all the key stakeholders together. And I want to thank all those who the minister thanked personally. But I want to recognize Jarmin and Mr. Fareed for the tremendous leadership he provided. And all the staff. I want to recognize the Ministry of Local Government and all the regions and NDCs who participated fully, the municipalities, in the consultation. Now, I also want to recognize the private sector, the NDMA, because sometimes we don't tell our story. One of the hindrances that we had in this program was the software that we were initially looking at had a recurrent cost that was very, very high. It would have been very costly, that recurrent cost, and it had a transactional aspect to it. And we tasked the NDMA to come up with a homemade solution that would not have any of this recurrent costs. And our national consultant, IT consultant, Daryl, is here, and I want to thank you and your team for coming up with this homegrown, homemade software that we can now share free of cost with the rest of our brothers and sisters in this region. Because this entire platform is meant to be transferable to all the countries within this region so we can all improve our doing business indicators, enhance competitiveness and transparency. We are ready to export this. Homegrown, homemade. Now, it is simple to say that the AG and this team had the task of passing a legislation. That's not true here. This was completely different. This was linking, this is ensuring the law worked with the system and policy. This was linking a legislation with a system. A legislation had to be specifically crafted to capture the policy, the plan, and this is bringing together hundreds of different laws and bylaws and regulations under an umbrella legislation that will do a few things. One, ensure the independence of the agency is not affected, because there have to be independence of different agencies. Two, ensuring that a time frame in approval that we wanted to achieve was kept, in ensuring there was no increase in costs, in ensuring that there was no increase in bureaucracy. So the entire legislation had to be created in an umbrella format to capture this single window. And I've already asked the AG to make this presentation of this legislation to his colleagues in the region, because we want also to share this with our colleagues in the region. But that was not the end of it. That was not the end of it. We also had to get regulations, because the regulations are an important part of bringing to effect what we want to achieve. So then there was work on going on and getting into the regulations. Now, one point I want to make here that we have not made so far is that this is in effect will reduce the transaction costs. Why? Right now, someone wanting to build a building that requires all the agency would have to travel to the different agency with different days. On an average, you will lose 10 days just moving around with your application and submitting your application. You lose 10 days of work, 10 days of productivity. You have the cost of traveling, the cost of doing business. Then, after that, if you have 10 different queries from 10 different agencies, you have to revisit those 10 agencies. So that is the complexity of this task. A bit later, I will demonstrate to you how a burdensome system, a system that was complex, not integrated at all, has been reduced to one flow. And I will show you that. So what was it that we were trying to cure? And of course, I've already asked the Minister of Legal Affairs, who is the Attorney General, and the Minister of Finance, to ensure we write to the different global indicators to demonstrate what we are doing. Because this definitely has to put us, Mr. Fareed, in the top 10 when it comes to permitting and construction permitting. This definitely, because there's very few systems we can point to globally. We are setting ourselves apart here. And this is innovation at its highest. Now, what was it we are trying to cure? We are trying to cure a fragmented planning and approval process. Faced with a convoluted process of having to shuttle between multiple ministries, government agencies, municipal bodies to secure the necessary permits and approval for projects. This disjointed system fostered inefficiency and delays. It was cumbersome and time-consuming. The process was bureaucratic, it was deterrent to development, and definitely it frustrated investors and stymied development. Because every day in the system, people would write to see the chief planning officer, they'll write the CEO, they'll write the ministers, they'll write the chairman of the board, they'll write the president. We cannot get our permits, we cannot get our planning permission. So really, the system created obstacles and delays in project execution. Now, it was a system that might have worked in a particular time set for that. But the speed of development and the speed of expansion now requires this new approach. The system is totally antiquated for the type of development and speed of development that is taking place. And we have to also be aware that it is the same human resource set, the same human resource base, the same technical support that we have implementing, let us say, $10 billion of project, now asked to implement and approve $100 billion of project. The human base has not changed. So the only way we can catch up and the only way we can be relevant is if technology aids us. And that is what is going on here. Now, an important part, as the Minister said, is rooting out red tape. The launch of the single window planning development system is to streamline the approval process. And of course, an important part of what we're doing here this morning is fulfilling one of the commitments we made in the People's Progressive Party manifesto. I made very clear that we have the intention of fulfilling all the commitments we made in the manifesto. And today, I'm very, very happy that this is another plank of the manifesto that has been fulfilled. I'm also very happy to say that the necessary legislation went through national consultation, regional consultation, private sector consultation 3 times. And I think we should applaud this team. 3 times we had national consultation. That is not an easy task. It is not an easy task. And then it went to the Parliamentary Select Committee. And all the ideas and all the addition was taken into consideration in finalizing the legislation. The new system aims to centralize and simplify the approval process by providing a one-stop shop for all development-related permission and clearance. What it also allows us to do is identify agencies that are inefficient, agencies and individuals, because we'll know who are assigned a particular, I'll give you an example. One day I was coming in at the airport, and I went down to immigration, and I stood at the back. Without saying a word, I was observing. And I observed a particular immigration officer processing every passenger in less than 3 minutes. Then I observed 2 others taking almost 9 minutes per passenger. And then I observed the average at 6 minutes. And I asked the chief immigration officer, what is the average time it should take? And he said, 3 minutes. So I asked them, don't do any rocket science. Let that person who is doing it in 3 minutes run a training program to let them understand how to do it in 3 minutes. Since then, I've heard and I've seen the processing time improve rapidly. Similarly here, we will have agencies that may not be pulling their weight. And then the entire system bears the burden of the inefficiency. So in this approach now, there's a time set. And if you don't submit your comment, it is taken as approved. If you do not submit your comment, it is taken, silence is approval. And then you will be held accountable as to why you did not submit your approval. But I'll go through some of the stages. But that's an important part of the system. It's time sensitive. So, no one can hold their application on their desk anymore and believe they have all of God's life to approve it. It is time sensitive. The system integrates various steps into a single platform. The single window system eliminates the need for investors to engage with multiple agencies independently, thereby reducing opportunities for inefficiency and leakages. Now I want to say this too, that the investor profile of Guyana is changing. We have people from the diaspora, international investors, sophisticated investors. And we can't ask an investor to come here 10 times in a year just to follow up on an application or just to submit additional information. So that was a reality we had to deal with too. Because the Guyana economy is expanding in a global way. So we have people from almost every corner of the world participating in our economy now. And our system must take this into account. So this is another aspect of the system that is important. The expected outcome is a more transparent, efficient, investor-friendly environment to help accelerate development, attract more investment, and ultimately contribute to Guyana's economic growth and modernization. The single window system is a significant shift towards a more rule-based system. Mr. Farid made this point. It is taking away the human biases and making it more rule-based, system-based. And that is what we want the country, that is how we want the country to run. I don't want everybody, when I go on a public outreach, to come to me and believe that they have to talk to me to get something done. The system must work. The system must be rule-based. The system must be trusted. The system must be efficient. Right now, I spend almost 3.5 hours every day going through correspondences on things the system should do automatically. So, importantly, this system allows that rule-based environment. Under this system, regulations and requirements are clearly and precisely defined. The regulations will be uniformly applied, reducing the ambiguity that often accompanies administrative procedures. Digitization and streamlining of the workflow, the single window system minimizes the need for multiple interaction. And this is important. It can be frustrating when you have to have multiple interaction on the same subject. Imagine you have to explain your same plan to 10 different agencies and sometimes repeat the answers to all the agencies. It's frustrating. No one wants to go through that in this modern world. It also helps in removing the discretionary powers. Those who exploited bureaucratic delays, and this is important, many times we blame the people in the system, but there are others out there who exploit the bureaucratic delays and red tape. And they do so to extort people, take bribes from developers who feel threatened by the system not working in their favor. Right now, at CSP, we have a system for the approval of commercial land. And there are many fraudsters operating, and we are on the backs. We have already caught some, and we are on the backs of the others. But people are facilitating the fraudsters because they do not want to do things the rule-based way. All of us have a responsibility in this transformation. So, today, this initiative is guided by the principles of accountability and predictability, transparency, single input for all planning development application, regulatory timelines and decision, accountability of decision making, enhanced monitoring and enforcement, adherence to national and regional policies. The system will also allow applicants to schedule meetings, and maybe at this time, to make this easier, I'll ask our technical people to put on screen a very simple flow chart I put together on the system and how it works. Now, this is all it is now. Historically, you would have found almost 15 bureaucracy, different diagrams that you have to go through. Now, it is simple. You go to the CSPA website, you navigate the CSPA website and click on the single window tab. One click away. After that, you register. You enter your name and email. The applicant will receive an email prompting them to complete the registration process. So, you will have now your individual registration. So you go to the website. Now, a question may arise. What about those who don't have connectivity in the country? Well, the system in this stage, while the country is building out connectivity, provides for the manual collection of application and the transfer of those applications onto the digital system. So we have put that in place, where it will be collected in regions that don't have the connectivity, but immediately transferred, because this system will help the auditors. All the auditors need everything that does not go on the system is going some route that is not part of kosher. So you go to the website, you register, then you fill out the application profile. You complete the form and provide all necessary detail accurately. So two things I want you to note here. At this stage, you need to make sure all your information is accurately reflected on the form. You need to ensure that there are some fields that you must provide information. An incomplete application will not go beyond here. Very important. If your application is incomplete, your time check does not start. Your time check only commences when your application is complete with all your documentation and everything. Then is when the clock starts. Put it that way. So you fill out the application profile. Then this is the beautiful part of the system. There is a pre-consultation. In that pre-consultation, and this is customer service at its best. You submit your application, you're scheduled for a pre-consultation. What are you trying to achieve? Okay, we've gone through your application. There's some things that we are not clear about. Clarify this. There's some information that you may need to submit it. So that pre-consultation is very important. Now you will see that there's a time frame of 7 days between the pre-consultation and the meeting with CSP. So in this pre-consultation, you will see some of the agencies listed at the bottom with their logos. Depending on the application set, the participants of the consultations are selected. Because all the participants is not required for every application. So the participants are selected. They all have the electronic application. They go through the consultation. Then, of course, there's a meeting with CSP, where the applicants can choose whether they want to meet with CSP or other agencies. For example, if the applicant has a complex project that requires an EIA, then they may want some advice on how they can get the EIA done. So we then say, okay, we're going to schedule a specific meeting with EPA so you can discuss how you can get your EIA. Now, there is one more build out that the system can move forward in the future with. And this is important. Because the consultant, the investor might then ask you, who are the best persons to do an EIA for me in Guyana? So the EPA now can have a register, and this is where accountability is built into the system. So you don't have everybody on the road claiming to be an environmental specialist. You have a registered individual and companies who can do an EIA on the EPA platform. So they go to EPA. They want a specific meeting with the EPA on an EIA. We schedule that for them. So they don't need to run and all over the place to schedule this meeting. The portal is scheduling this. And of course, people are behind the portal. They go, they get it and advise on the EIA. They don't need to go to a broker on the street or to go to some fraudster on the street who will collect money even to schedule a meeting for them with some bureaucrat. That is scheduled. Go to that meeting. And as I said, in the future, that meeting must then point them to approved consultants, approved firms. Because that's a big problem we have in housing now, where builders are exploiting homeowners. So this is how the system will evolve. So then you have that consultation. Then you have the payment, confirmation, and review. Now you notice where payment is coming. All of this service is done without payment. Historically, Jeremy, the first thing you do is go and pay. Historically, that's the first thing you do, Anna. You go and pay. Now, we give you all of this service. Because at that point, the applicant might decide, listen man, I really thought I was ready, but I'm not ready. Let me not pay now. Let me go back and get my house in order and come back to you. So at that point, the payment, confirmation, and review takes place. The processing takes place between 30 to 45 days. That's the end of the clock. 30 to 45 days is the end of the clock. Now, the clock can be extended based on your defects. That is why for the applicant, between registering to payment, you should clear all your defects. That planning node of the portal is to clear your defect. It's to perfect your application, if you want to put it that way. So at that point, you can basically say when you clear that point, that is a smooth process. All the comments and everything. Then, importantly, and this is where we have the experienced people like Marna, we have the appeal tribunal. If after all of this, you still are not satisfied, the system gives you now an appeal tribunal. Now, I want to make this important point. If you still are not satisfied with the appeals tribunal, you still have your constitutional right to go to the courts. The system does not take away that final constitutional right to go to the court. But it gives you an opportunity to resolve it. And the appeals tribunal are people who are experts but not practicing in the system at that time, independent of the system. So, this in short. Now, if I had to do this presentation in the existing system, and let us say you live in Puerto Rico, and you're building a hotel, I would have to show you a graph for fire, a graph for public health, a graph for the region and NDC. It would be very, very, very good. This is what the system is basically. Now, Mr. Farid and Jarman, did I exclude anything? Maybe I'm the driver. So, this is in short what the system is. It is a very complex, as I said, tons of agency consolidated in one. So, although the system is reflected in this very simple way, it's a very complex undertaking. And I want to conclude by once again thanking the team from CHPA, our consultant who will continue with us in the implementation of this system. I want to thank the board, all the agencies, ministries, the Attorney General Office and the Extension, all our legal minds who worked on this. And I want to say to CARICOM, she is not here, but to our colleagues in the region, that we are ready to share this with you and for us to support, however we can, the growth and efficiency of our systems within the region. Thank you very much, and I want to say that this is homegrown, and I don't believe in this region we can point to a system of this nature. So we should all be proud of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency, for your vision and hands-on approach to governance for the benefit of our citizens and stakeholders alike. At this point, I would now like to invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, Mr. Sherman Greaves, to deliver the acknowledgements. Mr. Greaves.
Thank you, P.S. Kubin. I apologize for my voice. I just have a slight flu. All protocols observed. As you can see from the video, how much weight I lost from this single window, right?
Visible.
I know most of the previous speakers would have given acknowledgements, but I just want to repeat and reiterate the acknowledgements. Today we celebrate a pivotal moment in Guyana's journey towards modernization with the launch of this electronic planning and development single window system. This groundbreaking platform will streamline our investment processes, making them faster and more efficient. First and foremost, I extend my deepest gratitude to His Excellency the President for his visionary leadership and unwavering support for this project. I would also like to commend the leadership of our two ministers, the Honorable Colin Cruz and the Honorable Susan Rodriguez, whose vision has been indispensable. Our Chief Development Planner and Project Coordinator, Ms. Jarman Strode, has been a guiding force through this endeavor. The Central Housing and Planning Authority is deeply grateful to the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Anil Nandalal, Mr. Darshan Ramdani and their team for the invaluable legal expertise. Our external consultant, Dr. Fareed Amin, and Mr. Andrew Bishop, provided essential guidance from the project's inception.
Also, sorry, let me also acknowledge the work of Andrew Bishop. Thank you.
Special recognition goes to Mr. Jermaine Braffett of the River and Sea Defense Board for his invaluable feedback and suggestions. We must also thank our partners, agencies whose steadfast support has been crucial in bringing this revolutionary system to life. These include the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority, Guyana Fire Service, Maritime Administration, Environment Protection Agency, Guyana Forestry Commission, Go Invest, Land Registry, Deeds and Commercial Registry, Guyana Water Incorporated, National Trust of Guyana, Guyana Lands and Survey Commission, River and Sea Defense Board, Central Board of Health, Ministry of Local Government, local democratic organs, and the Ministry of Public Works. Additionally, we acknowledge the National Data Management Authority, the Parliamentary Sectorial Committee, the Guyana Telephone and Telegraph Company, Mobile Money, Chamber of Commerce for the invaluable support. Special thanks to management and staff of the Ministry of Housing and Central Housing and Planning, our Public Relations Department for their dedication and hard work. This achievement underscores the power of collaboration and shared views and vision. Together, we are transforming Guyana into a more attractive and efficient destination for our investors. Thank you very much for all those who contributed.
Thank you, CEO Sherwin Greaves. At this point in time, I'd like to thank all of you for attending and participating in this very important initiative, and hope that it'll be a benefit to everyone. Thank you very much.
Taxi.